Welcome to the Good Divorce Show, where we can help you learn how to navigate the journey of divorce with less conflict, less debt, and equip you not to just get divorced, but also learn how to be divorced. Your host, certified divorce coach Karen McNenny, shares her wealth of knowledge, gets advice from other relationship experts, and interviews couples who learn how to have a good divorce, so you can too. Now here's your host, Karen.
Hello and welcome back to the Good Divorce Show. I'm Karen McNenny, your host and Good Divorce coach. I am so tickled today because we are going to have a conversation from a perspective that is a first here on the Good Divorce Show. And I'm kind of calling it Ask the Nanny. Brynn is our guest today, and she is the CEO and founder of Premier Nanny Network. She started babysitting young, mostly so she could buy some CDs at the mall. But as something that began as a fun way to earn cash turned into a 20 plus year career in nannying and household management. And I'm going to say right now, there is so much to that job. We should not dismiss the value that these individuals bring to families. And she also realized that nannying it's about providing enrichment, coaching children, supporting families through those ups and downs. She has helped so many kids recognize their potential and often reminding them where there's a will, there's a way, while also still guiding parents to stay grounded when challenges do arise. How nice to have a third parent, if you will, in a household. Brynn really sees her purpose from her first babysitting gig to now working with families across the country, supporting those parents through the joys, the chaos of home life. And with over 2 decades of experience, she has now created her nanny and elder care agency, Premier Nanny Network. And those folks working there are career-driven mothers, divorced parents, of course, children, all of those folks in mind. And that maybe I'm with you on this, Brynn, that it'll all come full circle. And those that we have served in our careers and our life will come back and also serve us when we are in need. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah. Now, I do like to go back in time a little bit because many of us who find ourselves in this field are either come through divorce or a product of divorce as a child. And I think you got a double hitter on this one, Brynn.
I do. I am the product of divorce, and I have also been divorced, so I am a double hitter.
Yeah. Would you mind just giving us a little high level of, we don't want all the weeds of what it was being a child of divorce, but the things that happen there that have imprinted and influenced how you see the world and how you run your business.
That's such a great point to bring up. Watching my parents divorce was very earth-shattering for myself and my siblings. It really, changed almost overnight for us. And I think the big piece I can take away from it is that I was kind of propelled into survival mode most of my teen years and leading into early adulthood. And I think that, I spent a lot of time comparing myself to my peers that didn't have their parents divorce and how they were just thriving and really just shooting forward, it felt like in life. And, I kind of feel like watching my peers have that experience as opposed to me was kind of disheartening until I became a little older and started realizing that maybe this career of watching children is so much more than just being a part of these families, but it's kind of my mission to kind of be a voice for children across the country that are also experiencing something similar. And I created Premier Nanny Network just for something on the side by the urging of friends and colleagues because I was already doing it. And with their support, I created Premier Nanny Network, and it's just been so wonderful. It's been so fun. And like I said, I'm definitely on a mission to help children feel heard all across this country, whether they're going through divorce or their parents are divorced or anything and everything in between.
Mm-hmm. And in your own divorce, just tell us, where are you in that process? The before, during, after? Are there children in the story? How are you navigating that?
We tried to have children. I'm kind of grateful that that didn't work. I don't know if the universe or God was looking out for me, but I've been divorced since 2021. And, during the initial findings of that situation, it was very, again, earth shattering, just like my parents' divorce. And it really rocked me and completely changed the way I saw the world. I really put all my trust and faith in this person. And it turned out to not be a good match. And, moving forward from that, I think the biggest thing I've taken away is just learning to trust myself and learning to listen to myself and know that I still can make good choices, even if this wasn't the best choice for me. And, I totally believe in marriage. I do believe in divorce. I think that it's better to cut ties with someone and have a chance to kind of create your own new fresh path and to stay connected if it's just not working.
I just could not agree more. I think we often stay too long.
Yes.
And I'm also pro family, pro marriage, do the couples counseling, do individual counseling, get support. And when you see the exit,
Hmm.
then maybe take it before the destruction really starts to set in. We don't always offer a lot of permission for people to gracefully and consciously and intentionally dissolve their marriages, to just get unmarried, right?
Hmm. Yes.
So at the Good Divorce Show, we like to remind our listeners that you can design your divorce in the same way that you designed your wedding day.
Yes.
Um, it's going to have a very different energy about it, but be in control. So I'm curious, when you think about your clients, and obviously you have families who are divorced, and I wonder, are you a person who sometimes will transition with the kids back and forth between homes if that's the custodial arrangement?
Absolutely. During my career over 20 years, I was able to nanny for a couple families that were already divorced and living in the same area. And I was able to kind of float between households, if you will. And I think that this was a really wonderful arrangement. One, for one family, they both parents paid me because there was a little bit of conflict regarding finances. And so we made it very simple. I just said both of you can submit payment. You don't have to send payment to one another and then pay me. And they really love that. And, we can make that happen for anyone that wants to hire a nanny through me. Another really great positive piece of being a nanny that could float between households was, in one instance, the little boy I was nannying at the time left his soccer cleats at his dad's house, and he had a big game that day. And, unfortunately, it was a very tumultuous divorce. So the father didn't want the mother to be running by the house to get the cleats. So I said, hey, I have time before I'm supposed to clock in today. If you don't mind, I'll run over to, your ex-husband's house. I'll grab the soccer cleats and I'll meet you at the game. And, it was a really easy, calm way to just diffuse the situation that could have been rather hectic with both of them trying to figure out, their power struggle. And then, another example too, with another family, I had a little girl tell me, she could tell her mom was very stressed out and upset over, something that her dad was doing and her parents were divorced. And so she made an effort to come and speak to me and open up to me. And I was able to listen and be an advocate for her. And I just remember saying, would you mind if we talk to your mom and your dad about this? Let's find a time that it's comfortable for everyone and you don't need to be scared. And I see that with a lot of the nannies I work with. They're confided in often because they are there to support your children. That's where we thrive. I became who I am because of my love for children, because I wish someone was there for me during this time. So it was,
Mhm.
it's really helpful in so many ways to have us as a neutral party to take care of your kids.
Oh my gosh, it just sounds dreamy. And the gear, the story of the soccer cleats, it just
Hmm.
happens all the time, right? That's one of the logistics and the complexities of living across two homes. And I could presume in moments like that one parent's like, well, they forgot the cleats. Too bad. I'm not going to help. They're not going to come in my house. They're not, right? And they kind
Hmm.
of double down in that power struggle you talked about. Well,
Hmm.
who's the person who doesn't have their cleats for the game?
Their kid. He's the one that's going to be the only one on his team without his soccer cleats to match his team. It was a
Because they're
no-brainer for me.
in a pissing match for no
Yes,
good reason, right?
and it
Well,
happens.
no, there's reason. And that's it. We have to rise above, you know, our pain, our betrayal, the hurt. I get it. I've been there. Brynn has been there. It's incredibly devastating. But compartmentalizing those big feelings that you have for your former spouse. And what I say, just put them in the crock pot, let them simmer. They'll be there. You can go get them anytime you want.
Yes,
So then you can just do the business of being a co-parent, no longer a partner, but the parent role. That's what we have to try to hold on to through this.
absolutely.
Do you see parents who have done some, like, I always like to give our listeners a few little hacks about gear and communication, and you really do have this rare experience of being the fly on the wall in both homes. And maybe we could do a little compare and contrast. Like, here's some really great examples of managing children across two homes, and here is some crap you should probably not do.
Yes, absolutely. I could probably write a book on that alone, and it would be rather
Well,
long.
yeah. Give us a few ideas today. Let's start with the things that you see that are really damaging to kids that we should just shed um, as we
I,
co-parent.
Absolutely. I think the biggest thing for any of you listening is to offer your children respect. A lot of children are very attuned to what's going on, and even though they may be 5 years old or 7 years old, they all respond to respect. So if you sit down with them and create a dialogue with them that is at their mental level, but you offer that element of respect in that conversation, you're going to go so much further than a parent that's going to completely ignore or skim over the big feelings that your children may be having. And I can tell you across the board, I think that that's one of the most heavily, one of the biggest common denominators of all of my success as a nanny, aside from just being someone that steps into your home and becomes, someone that's there for a few hours. Every instance I've ever offered a child respect, they are more likely to listen, they're more likely to behave, and they're more likely to really absorb the situation that's happening. Whereas if you're just tossing information at them, sometimes it'll skim right over. I love little boys, but they're high energy. Not to say little girls aren't, but it's harder to get a little boy to sit down and really give you his attention. But if you're offering respect, you're more likely to have a very conducive and productive conversation with your kids.
I also like your emphasis on, the age appropriate conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And we talk to the 6-year-old versus the 16-year-old is going to be different. But this underlying, the 6-year-old is just as deserving of respect.
Absolutely.
And the words, we might end up using more of a story or a metaphor to explain something to a younger child. Whereas once we get into, teen and young adult world, they probably want it a little more straight up, because they're going to
Yes.
call you on it if you're not being.
Absolutely. Absolutely. They definitely will call you on it.
What about the logistical part? Because as you mentioned with the soccer cleats, keeping track of the calendar and communication and the lunch boxes, and how it is that all the socks and mittens end up at one house. And
Yes.
what insight could you give to our families who are maybe just learning this whole new world of living across two homes?
Calendars. You really have to have a shared calendar. I have seen the most success in families that either are using an app or a calendar to kind of catalog all of the events, doctor's appointments, soccer games, after school activities. I also highly recommend having a little extra of socks and dishware if you're sending your child to school with forks or spoons and they all end up at your ex's house. Those are kind of complicated things. I've definitely been in that situation as a nanny where I've shown up at the dad's house, and the overwhelming amount of spoons that were in that household, I took all the ones that weren't matching and I said, hey, in this instance, I'll call him Jake. Jake, I noticed that you have a ton of spoons here. Is it okay if I put these in a Ziploc bag and take them back to where they belong? Yes, that's fine. I kind of just avoided the whole, hey, you have your ex-wife spoons in your household. Just keeping it light, fresh, and fun. Hey, this is something I see. I'm going to go ahead and take care of this for you. And a lot of the nannies that I speak to that are, very professional, they're very attuned to this, and they're also very aware, and they thrive in situations like this as well, of just, I'm just going to handle this. So
Yeah.
I think as long as parents are able to have, if they can't communicate, I think as long as there is an app or a gateway of a calendar of some sort, I think that that's really one of the most beneficial logistical additions you can have to your divorce if you're not using a nanny.
Right. And, this idea of you being in both homes with the child, my daughter is now in college, and she came on the show in my
Oh,
first,
nice.
after she went off to college and was 18 and came home for Christmas. She's like, I got a few things to say. And it was a wonderful, rich, conversation, but we were recently chatting about the meaning of home for her. And, both dad and I have changed houses once since divorce. And they, of course, go between those homes all the time until they go off to their dorm room. And they were so excited to, right? She's like, all my stuff is in one place at one time, and it's not going to move next week or next
Hmm.
month. And she talked about her brother being really her sense of home and place, because they're now spending 50% of their time with each parent, but
Hmm.
100% of their time with their sibling. And in this case, you become that role, like surrogate parent and sibling. I also know a lot of family dogs that move
Yes.
between, to see it all. And that in some way that you would be kind of that sense of home. You see all of it. They don't have to catch you up. You were there.
Yes.
And I'm wondering what that looks like through your lens and what benefit it is to the kids. And if you've stayed in touch, that's like three questions all at once, Brynn. So about kind of the magic and the power in that ongoing relationship with the children.
I can say that most of the children I have nannied or worked with in my career have all found me in one way or another. And that's always such a treat when they reach out and they, oh my gosh, you taught me to scrape, rinse, load my plates, and now I'm in college and I was scrape, rinsing, and loading my plate in the dishwasher thinking of you the other day. And it's like, really? That's what you remember? Okay. I worked for it with a family that actually had a bunny that went between households. And at first, I'm not going to lie to you, I thought it was a little frustrating that I was going to be transferring a bunny back and forth, but it quickly became so apparent to me that this bunny was absolutely vital for the mental health of the youngest daughter that was going between households. And it was her safety blanket. And what initially started to me of like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be transferring a bunny between households, to, oh my gosh, I was at the pet store the other day and I found these cute little things. Maybe your bunny's gonna like it, and bringing those to work with me. What were your other questions, Karen? I feel like
Yeah, you
I'm
kind of hit
touching
them
them
up.
all.
Well, you do become a touchstone to the kids, and
Yes,
that your relationship has transcended the time that you actually nannied for the family,
yes,
that
yes.
you have kind of cast this beautiful long shadow in their life.
Absolutely. And to touch on, if they don't have a sibling, there was one family I worked with only child, and I can tell you that that was a very rough transfer for him every week.
Mm.
And it was mainly because the schedules were different in each household. It wasn't like he wasn't getting the support, love, and attention. I mean, all of you parents out there that are going into divorce or are divorced, just know you're doing a phenomenal job with whatever you're offering. There's no right way to go through divorce. There's no right way to share it with your child. There's going to be struggles no matter what you do. And in this particular instance, their son was really struggling because of those different schedules. So for anybody listening that's not going to, want to hire a nanny, I strongly encourage you to make sure that your schedules are aligning as much as possible between households. If your child's going to bed at 7:30 at your house, but then at your ex's house it's 9:30, you're going to see behavioral issues. You're going to see acting out. You're going to see a loss in appetite. You're going to see a lot of random naps that are going to kind of disrupt their sleep schedule. And these are all things that are really important to kind of pay attention to as you go through this divorce or as you navigate having these separate households. As
Oh,
the nanny in that situation, I was able to go, hey, I, don't want to overspeak here, but I am noticing, you guys are vocalizing and communicating to me these behavior issues, and I'm hearing from the teachers as well at pickup that there's some things happening. I think it would be really smart for both of you to sit down and kind of come together and figure out a schedule that's going to work for your son, because at the end of the day, he's really struggling right now. And I was really grateful that those parents listened to me. It was a terrifying conversation to have, but it was my duty as the professional nanny in that situation to use my voice. And, worst case scenario, they say, hey, we don't want you to be our nanny anymore. Get out of here. But 99% of the time, parents are very receptive because they realize, oh my gosh, I need to be putting my son or my daughter first in this situation. I need to put my emotions and my, turmoil to the side and kind of do what's best for our children.
Oh, that's just wonderful. And when we come back from our break, we're going to chat with Brynn more about consistency around consequences and expectations and the importance of consistency across homes. So stay with us. We're chatting today with Brynn of Premier Nanny Network.
Are you thinking about getting divorced? Before you call a lawyer, call the Good Divorce Coach, Karen McNenny, a certified divorce counselor, co-parenting specialist, and mediator. Karen's signature Good Divorce experience will guide you through your divorce journey, from the day you make that difficult decision to the day the decree is signed, all for a predictable fee. The Good Divorce Coach will teach you and your partner how to get divorced and be divorced with less conflict and less debt. Visit thegooddivorcecoach.com to get in touch with Karen.
Now, back to the show with Karen.
Hello, welcome back to the Good Divorce Show. Thanks for hanging in there. Today we are chatting with Brynn Ungerleider. She is the founder of the Premier Nanny Network and one of those unique roles as an adult that actually moves between homes with the children who are living across two families. So welcome back to the show, Brynn.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
As we went into the break, we were talking about consistency of schedule, right? Going to bed at the same time in both homes, waking up at the same time, just having a rhythm for the child that isn't radically different across homes. What other areas should we be thinking about in terms of consistency that it's valuable for the parents to get on the same page?
Well, I think one thing that really jumps to mind are finances. I think one thing that most parents are going to bring up during divorce is the money. And I do want to just make a point that if both of you are paying for a nanny, whether it's full-time or transitional management or a mother's helper, it's actually really cost effective for you to share the nanny versus each hiring one. So just wanted to throw that information out there for anyone that is contemplating this move and bringing in a trusted professional. You're welcome to give me a call and we can talk about it further. But one thing about those of us that are professional nannies is our ability to stay organized and consistent, because one thing we know are children, and children thrive on routine. And while we do love some spontaneity, don't get me wrong, I love doing a little zig and going to the park or picking up some ice cream when everybody's having a great day. But at the end of the day, your children are thriving on routine for many reasons. And one of those reasons is for their mental development, because as long as they're in that routine, they're able to kind of push themselves academically, physically, emotionally in other areas, because they always have that, well, I have to do this at this time, or mom's going to pick me up, or I have, soccer on this day. And it kind of allows them to kind of push those limits and those boundaries. And I know many of you see that on a daily basis. I always say your children act out the most with you because they are comfortable with you. They're comfortable with us nannies too. We are professionals at calming chaos and chaos control. But that routine and that consistency is really going to offer your children the ability to kind of thrive through this transition and thrive through this process and not be in survival mode all the time, which is what I experienced. And so just to kind of touch on that topic a little bit, it's really quite important to make sure, even if you are not getting along with your ex, that you are offering that structure in some way, shape, or form for your children so that they can thrive.
And certainly when I'm working with families and we're writing their parenting plan, that's the thing we talk about, and know that it's not a one and done conversation, because from age 6 to 10 to 12 to 16, and then curfews, like, and then
Yes.
car privileges and phone, like, this is an organic, ever evolving relationship. And the parenting plan that you wrote on day one, perhaps when your children were quite young, even pre school, you have to stay in the conversation so that your parenting is evolving across both homes together and aligned. I think it really is valuable when kids know that their parents are aligned.
Oh, so
Talk
true.
a little bit about curfews and consequences and privileges and chores and allowances, like the kinds of things that could be wildly different across houses, and the value of when they're the same, or how you see parents work that out.
So, as a nanny, having two different households with disciplines, curfews, rules, and structures, the biggest piece for us is just figuring out what each household needs and is requiring. And then once we get that under our belt, we're really able to kind of fly along with whatever the parents are requesting of us. And you can tell a seasoned nanny by his or her ability to hear your requests for discipline, consistency, curfews. As long as you have that generic outline for us, we're going to follow it. You're going to get in trouble if you hire someone without experience that wants to kind of fly off the seat of their handle and kind of take matters into their own hands. And to me, that's not a professional, and it's not someone that should really be watching your children, because our main goal is to be an extension of you.
Mhm.
So if you're dealing with preteens or teenagers that have those curfews, I hope you're doing well. I hope that you are getting sleep at night. I think that a lot of my experience working with teens and preteens comes back to that respect piece I touched on before, and offering those teenagers the respect of, hey, I'm going to offer you the opportunity to make this decision and make a good decision. And it's up to you to decide if you want to continue to have these privileges or if you want them to be removed. And I think a lot of parents struggle with that because you love your kids so much and you want them to thrive and be happy and have social lives. But you're also raising young adults that are going to be going out into the real world. And I hope that you are all doing your due diligence to show them the consequences of not behaving with respect and self-discipline and dignity and ethical behavior before they fly your nest. And I think one of those things comes back to, you know, if your preteen or teenager has a curfew of 8 p.m. and they're routinely late, they lose that privilege. And if you communicate that with your nanny, or if you don't have a nanny or your ex, make sure you follow through with, hey, you know, we gave you the opportunity to be independent and be in control. And unfortunately, you're showing us that this is not something that you're ready to take on. So we're going to remove this privilege for now. We're going to work our way back up to it through your actions, your behaviors. Show us that you want to have this responsibility.
Mm-hmm. And this idea of the communication between houses, I really see the struggle when we have one house that's really permissive and kind of loosey goosey and, has a little more absent parenting. And then there's one household that feels super rigid. And then that puts the child right in this place of tension. And when the
Yes.
parents are not unified, kids will use that against you. The triangulation is
Yes.
going to take over. So if Betty Sue has a curfew of 11 o'clock at 16 in the yellow house, then our recommendation is that the green house has the same curfew at that age, and that is a continued conversation. And when Betty Sue comes home at midnight and not 11, you inform the other parent of what's happened.
Yes.
And let's say Betty Sue's going to lose her phone privilege for a week, but in the middle of that week, she transitions to her other home.
Mm-hmm.
Again, the recommendation is that the other parent respects and honors a consequence that hopefully the two of you baked up together, and that you both have committed to hold that consequence. And she doesn't get her phone back. And she knows my parents may not be married, but woo, they are my parent team. I'm not
Yes.
getting away with anything because they talk. And we don't just talk about where you're, goofing around and where we need to help. And we talk about all the good stuff too.
Of
Celebrating
course.
our children is so important. Do you see, coming back again to Parents Unified, like there's going to be events, there's going to be birthday parties and Christmases and choir concerts and soccer games. What would you say to our parent audience as they think about how best to show up for their children?
I think that in my experience working with divorced parents, it's really easy to allow fear to drive you. And when you do that, you essentially pull your child away from experiencing a relationship with you and your ex-partner. And in the mediation world, this is kind of referred to as gatekeeping. And I think that when parents are trying to keep that power and let fear control you, and maybe you don't believe your ex is going to do as great of a job at parenting as you, or have as great of a household as you, I think that those may be really um, natural thoughts in the moment for you. And I really strongly encourage any of you that are experiencing that to kind of just breathe a little and allow the fact that, you did choose this person to have children with at one point. You saw good in them at one point. Your kid has 50% of them. They're going to have pieces of your ex-partner. And so I know it's really, I've seen it and I experienced it too. I really see a lot of parents out there. They're like, well, I'll keep them for more time because they'll be safer and healthier and in a better routine at my household. But really what you're doing is you're just showing that you don't trust your ex-partner or their dad or their mom. And so that's really going to cause a rift in your communication. And it's, it may be ballet concerts and soccer games right now, but one day there's going to be weddings, and then there's going to be grandbabies, and then, you're connected for life. This is your family. So for those of you that are maybe hearing a little bit about what I'm saying and you're like, gosh, I'm kind of doing that, I really encourage you to kind of take a little bit of breathing and let go as much as you can and find help, talk with Karen and kind of develop a plan for your parenting strategy, not just for the next year, but for the next 10, 15 years, so that you can offer a really wonderful family, even if you aren't together, and giving your children everything that they deserve and more. And nobody needs to live their life in fear, and your kids are gonna pick up on it. They're going to feel it. They're going to sense it. They're gonna probably back away from you. They may not talk with you as much. They may feel fearful as well. And so it's kind of a tricky snowball to start rolling when you can mentally go, stop it. This isn't how I want to run things. I may not agree with what my ex-partner is doing at their household, but I'm going to do my very best to make sure this is a very positive experience for everyone.
I really appreciate this reflective memory that there was a love story. These children were born of love. And if the house is burning down and the destruction is such at the time of divorce, it's possible that maybe you've just stayed a little too long.
Yes.
And we start doing a lot of damage before we even get to the courthouse. And to have the grace and the wisdom to really see an intentional and a conscious exit, right? And to do so that house, that family metaphorical house, isn't burned to ashes that we all have to rise from, that we can just walk out the door and say, well, I think we're complete. I think this marriage is complete, but our relationship, it goes on forever. Like you said, graduation to grandbabies and beyond. And there's nothing worse. And I'm sure you've heard the stories I have of, oh my gosh, I'm getting married and my parents have been enemies for the last 20 years. And I don't know how I'm going to even, and they're going to ruin the wedding. Like, that is terrible. Be grown-ups. And I'm not saying there wasn't betrayal, there wasn't hurt feelings, but at some point, again, can you put it in the crock pot and let it simmer and just show up for your kid? And at that ballet concert and soccer game, can you sit together so when your children look in the stands, they see their parent team, they see you unified in joy for them, not on opposite ends of the bleachers, scowling and like, I don't know who I'm going to run up to after the game first when we win, because I'm always in this place of having
Yes.
to choose. Don't
Oh,
make me
yes.
choose.
So many children that I've talked to and worked with have always, I mean, that's such a big piece is I don't know who to choose. And I always just, my heart breaks. And I was that girl, 23 years later, my parents still do not speak to one another. And,
Oh,
through weddings and everything, it's just, I encourage any of you to just put it in the crock pot, like Karen said, let it simmer. These things will kind of dissipate with time, but your relationship with your children is not something that will simmer with time. This is something that you need to kind of get in front of. You need to be proactive. You need to stay positive, loving, have empathy, and even though as rough as my divorce was personally, I wish my ex-husband the very best. I hope that he finds his way, and if I can do it, all of you can do it. And for those parents that I've worked with that are listening to this and you remember me, I'm so proud of all of you for doing it, and I'm so grateful to see and hear from your children that they're thriving. So thank you for inviting me into your lives, and definitely, put your kids first. It's so worth it.
and I'm going to remind you, listeners, that we are listening to not just a professional nanny who has spent time in families and has so much exposure to child development, but Brynn is an adult child of divorce. She is also speaking from her own experience and trying to prevent you from, stumbling into those same traps that really end up being about ego and power and control, and that it leaves a mark. It leaves a
It
long
really does. And it
mark.
drags you down. It's not going to help you propel forward or propel up as a parent or your future. It really is going to put a little anchor on your heart and your soul and kind of keep you where you're at. And that's not how we're supposed to be. We're supposed to move forward. We're supposed to thrive. So I encourage you to work through it and find your way, and kind of find a way to let go of whatever was done so that your children can be happy and make new traditions and make new fun things in each household, and be supportive the best you can. And if you can't be supportive, that's okay. You may not be today, but who knows where you'll be a year from now.
Yeah, just wonderful. Brynn, I'd like to hear a little more about the Premier Nanny Network. I think there's a real mythology out there that nannies are for the wealthy. And, um, the irony that most of us, we enter into our parenting journey with very, very little, if not zero, parenting education.
Mm-hmm.
And lean on a lot of other professionals to show us the way. So please give us a little broader perspective of really the value of what a nanny and what I call that third parent can bring to the family.
So I actually did the math on this, and just by hiring someone to come in and help you part-time, you are saving yourselves or adding 50 hours to your week, whether they're running errands, meal prepping, handling that transitional management after school with pickups, homework, snack time, emptying those lunch boxes, the backpacks. I don't know any parents out there that are just excited to do homework with your children, but I can tell you that as a nanny, kids are so much more receptive to sit down with us because we're not exhausted and we're able to make it fun. Or if you have a full-time nanny, there are so many things that you can delegate off of your plate to give you more time to be with your children. And that's kind of what instigated my transition from helping one family at a time as a nanny, household manager, or mother's helper into this role of owning a nanny agency, is because I can't take over your ability to be a mom or a dad. That's the only job that you have to covet and keep. And how are you able to do that when you're sitting with your child and you're like, oh my gosh, I have to do the laundry. I need to get dinner started in 20 minutes. I need to add that to the grocery list. Oh, and we have that science project that's due on Friday. Oh, and then, Timothy has soccer on Thursday, Friday, and then we have hockey games on Saturday. I don't know how I'm going to get Timothy to hockey and then Sarah over to her ballet. And it's just, I hear all of this. I've seen all of it. And I can tell you that a nanny is there to handle all of those things. They can run those errands. They can do the grocery shopping. They can get your dinner ready. I worked for this really lovely family in Oregon when I was in college, and the mom, she really struggled with letting go of her career being a mom, and she really wanted to keep her career because she's really good at it. She was in marketing, and her husband was very supportive, and he worked from home when he could, and they were doing what they could to make it work, and they finally were like, okay, we need to bring someone in, and so they brought me in. And there was one week in particular that she was going to offer, she was going to do a presentation, hopefully to be promoted. And she was so excited and stressed out. And it was all the emotions leading up to it. And you could just feel it in the home. It was just such a buzz with their kids. And the day of the promotion, or the day of her presentation, I had everything taken care of. I even mopped her floors in her kitchen. The dishwasher was unloaded. I had a pot of spaghetti on the stove. I had everything taken care of for the kids to go to school. The little one, of course, wasn't in school yet. I had him ready to eat dinner with his pajamas picked out, all of it, every single detail. And she walked through the door and looked around and saw everything. And she just started crying in gratitude. Just thank you so much, because she got to be with her kids that night. She got to celebrate her day. She got to share. She got to be present. And I think that, while nannies are seen as such a luxury, we're really offering you all moments to be present with your children, because even after they leave the house at 18, if you're lucky, there's only so many years you get with them in your home where they think you are the hero. You are the superhero of their life. You are their queen or their king, and they look up to you. And why would you want to trade that for laundry and cooking and cleaning? And there's actually an article I read from the United States Department of Revenue talking about this exact situation, where families that decide to keep a working parent home to save money on childcare suffer more financially than if both parents have established careers and are working in those careers. They actually are moving ahead in those career placements in such a way that the finances to cover childcare are pretty much non-existent in their budget. And it really creates a lot more ease and peace in their households, and they're feeling more put together, feeling like they have more time with their family. They're not feeling so rushed. I don't know how many of you listeners out there on Sunday night are just feeling like your hair is frazzled and you are trying to get everything done before the week begins. There's a lot of documentation out there, and I think it's really easy to take a look and go, oh, well, nannies are for the luxury and for the rich, when in reality, we're here to help you thrive and be a better parent. And I don't know how many of you out there can tell me I'm wrong when you don't have anything stressing you out. What a better parent you are. How much more present are you when you're not running around frantically trying to figure out all these logistical things, when you can just sit and be?
It sounds dreamy. Listeners, where they can find you and these resources, and even have a conversation if they want to explore this option further.
Yes, I would love for anyone, please email me, premiernannynetwork@gmail.com. You can go to my website, premiernannynetwork.com. I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. You can Google me. If you just want to have a conversation about what options you have, shoot me an email. I'm happy to get in touch with you. You can schedule a time to speak with me if that's your deal. Whatever works for you, but I'm here to be a resource, whether you choose to hire a nanny through me or not. Let's just talk about what's best for your children. And for you, if you're going through divorce, or if you're just starting your divorce journey and you're talking with Karen and you don't know how to handle the kids going to your ex's house, give me a call. I have a nanny for that.
Wonderful. And do you have placements throughout the United States, or only in particular states? What's your coverage area?
I am nationwide. I am based out of Colorado, and I quickly realized that I can help people everywhere. And I have a nanny network that I am establishing and growing so quickly, of so many wonderful professionals that are looking for their next family. I talked with a real life Mary Poppins the other day, British accent and all, looking for her next family. And there's just, I always tell people I'm here to pair good people with good people. So I didn't want to limit myself. I am nationwide, and I hope to expand to Canada and the UK in the next couple years as well.
Fantastic. Brynn Ungerleider of Premier Nanny Network, thank you so much for spending this time chatting with us today.
Thank you for having me. I hope that this was helpful for all of you. And Karen, thank you so much. I really appreciate all the work you're doing and the mission you're doing as well. If any of you are on the fence about, meeting with Karen, I highly recommend it. I think what she is doing is just phenomenal, and I'm just grateful to be here.
We have a lot of pioneers out there working to disrupt the divorce industry and to guide families differently. And listeners, I really appreciate you taking the time today to gift yourself with education and support that you can also find your way to your own good divorce. And remember, everything will be okay in the end. And if it's not okay, it's not the end.
Thanks for listening. Do you have questions or thoughts about this week's episode? Let us know by following the Good Divorce Coach on Facebook and Instagram at Good Divorce Coach, and leave a comment. And be sure to tune in every Monday at 10 a.m. Pacific or listen anytime wherever you get your podcasts.